What's up, YouTube? Hi, and welcome to Gods Unchained Market Watch. I'm your host, JujuGU, and today we'll be going over all of the notable market movements in Gods Unchained. Do you guys smell that? Smells like a new meta. Yep, definitely smells like a new meta. So, big news for this week. Well, Corset Refresh Hat came out yesterday, and a couple of cards have hit the market. So far, we haven't seen too many cards though, just because everyone's trying to get obviously everyone's trying to get their own playset of core cards, and because of the way Flux works, you need multiple copies. So we're probably not going to run into any legendaries during this time, but there are a couple cards that hit the market, so we'll be seeing that. Also, there are cards that have been impacted by either changes or like emerging archetypes that are coming out. Like Amazons are starting to pop up. Vikings support is starting to get looked at too, as well as guild support. So we'll be checking out all of the notable buyouts for this week. With that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So first up, first new card, Petulant Fire Spreader. 1 mana 2/2 Nether. After this creature attacks, deal 1 damage to each god. This card can be good. It's a 1 mana 2/2, which is pretty standard. When it attacks, it deals an additional 1 damage, but because it's to each god, it has implications on, buffing cards like Fickle Cambion or the new Fickle Cambion or Faithbreaker, the new Faithbreaker card. So this card can see play. Also has synergy with Triage Necromancer. If you run this card in your deck, you can probably run Triage Necromancer as well, and it's another, so it has another support. Let's see what this sold for in US dollars though. Okay, it sold for like $13, right? $8. It sold for $8. Cheapest you can find it is $13, but I mean, it's still new in the meta game, right? So we'll see if these prices hold. Most likely not. Everything's inflated right now because there are no cards. There are basically no new core cards on the market yet. Next up, we have Monster Eyes. This is your 2 mana spell. Set one of your creature's stats to 4/3. That's pretty interesting in my opinion. 2 mana 4/3 in return for one of your minions. Maybe it's a zombie, maybe it's an imp. You could probably use this. You could probably use this for sure. 4/3 is great value for 2 mana. It just depends on the creature that you sacrifice, right? So 1 has sold on the market already. 2 has sold on the market at an average price of $14.20. Cheapest you can find it right now is $11.31. Next up, we have Tomb Carver. This is your 4 mana 4/5 Afterlife, heal your god for 3. I like this card. It's a 4 mana 4/5, so it's pretty standard for a 4 mana card at that price point. You get to heal your god for 3, and that's nice, especially in a class like Death where you're dealing damage to yourself pretty often. There isn't a lot of heal cards in Gods Unchained other than like Demogorgon, Dire Demolich, and some of the Leech cards in the War class. Like every class will have like heal, but I feel like in the metagame right now, it's very rare to like run into like heal. So yeah, this card is going to be a welcome addition to the Death class for sure. Right now, 2 copies were bought at an average price of $9.64. Nice. Cheapest you can find it now is $9.79. Next up, we have Skull Scepter. So this card has been fluctuating in price. It's now currently on the uptrend. Looks like it's reaching the same reaching the same resistance that it reached last time though. So time will tell if it bounces down or breaks through. But yeah, I think this card is very good, especially in aggro Death Deception decks, right? That don't run Necroscepter, of course. But you'd be surprised at how much mileage you can get from one Skull Scepter, depending on the type of deck you run. But yeah, that makes sense. Let's see the price. Price is at 702 right now. Average price has been at 651. So yeah, it's a little above market right now. Next up, we have good old Fickle Cambion. This is your 3 mana 3/3. After your god takes damage, this creature gains 1/1. It's your god, not a god. Okay, that changes a lot. Forget what I said about Fickle Cambion in the first card. Happens. But this card is still good. I like the change. Before it used to be when your god would take damage, you gained strength, and when you healed, you gained like it gained health. But now it's just straight up 1/1 after your god takes damage, and that's way better, in my opinion. More stats for one trigger, which is nice. We do see an increase in price, not by too much though, but let's see where it's at in US dollars. It's around the $3 mark. Cheapest you can find it at is $2.88. Next up, we have Ruined Asp. I like this card. It changed during the core set refresh. It's now a 2-mana 1/1. Deadly, Afterlife, both players unlock a mana lock. So you're basically a Fanatic of Noom with worse stats. However, it has Deadly. So it's going to be able to trade favorably with most minions as long as they don't have either 1 armor or protected. Right? Right now, the price has gone up from 28 cents to 61 cents. Man, that's a 40-cent markup right there. It's pretty crazy. Big spender. Don't spend all your money on this card, but yeah, it's very interesting to see. Next up, we have Famished Ghoul. This card also saw a little bit of a bot out, or at least an increase in volume. It's a 4-mana 3/2 now. Whenever a friendly creature dies, you draw a card. Not much to say here, really. I think this used to work with both you and your opponent. Now it's just exclusive to you, which is nice. They reduced the stats to kind of make up for that change. But I think it's still going to see some sort of play, maybe if you're like F2 free to play, or if you're running like a zombie swarm or an imp swarm, that kind of thing, you can probably splash this card in. Not much here, but let's see what the price point is right now. It's at 18 cents. So yeah. Pretty much as expensive as a Demogorgon, right? I'm obviously joking. All right, cool. Moving on. Next up, we have the Old Ritual. This is your 4-mana destroy creature. If you do, summon a 6/6 nether spawn for its controller. So the big difference here, it changes its effect from a transform to a destroy. And I like that because now you can actually trigger your afterlife effects, right? So Ruined Asp, maybe it's a Siren of the Grave, maybe it's, I don't know, Living Container. Stuff like that, right? So definitely an improvement, definitely a little bit of a buff for death minions. But yeah, right now it's seen an increase in volume. Let's see what the price is. It's 18 cents. So yeah, don't go too crazy on that price point, yeah? Next up, we have Raise Dead. Pull a creature from your void to your board. So this is kind of a nerf. Pull a creature from your void to the board. It used to be your void or your opponent's void, but now it's just yours, which is kind of sad. But I mean, it's still a good effect for 5 mana, especially if you're running like a reverse toolbox graveyard kind of thing. Yeah, that's that's one thing that you can run. Like you can run some cards that I think the 1-mana 2/2 that discards the top card of your deck, and just have a deck full of like really expensive minions, so that you play the 1-drop, you discard a really expensive minion, maybe like a Polyhymnia, and you have that in your grave. So then turn 5, you play Raise Dead, and you bring the Polyhymnia back, and it's pretty much GG from there. But yeah, there are a couple of things that you can do with this card as well. I just kind of miss the fact that you can use your opponent's grave, because that's fun. It's always fun using your opponent's cards, right? But yeah, anyways, that's Raise Dead. Moving on to the next one, Sand Scorpion. Okay, so this card has also seen an increase in activity. It got a buff. It's a 5-mana 2/5, a Nubian, deadly. Select a Nubian from your void and trigger its afterlife. Yeah, I like the card. I think it'll see play in dedicated Nubian decks with afterlife. But I mean, I don't think it'll be a part of the meta. But I could be wrong. I like the stat line now. It's 2-mana 2/5 or 5-mana 2/5 with deadly. The health the extra point in health does a lot. So yeah, very good card. Ooh, okay. Next up we have Fleshbind. This is your 1-mana spell. Destroy one of your creatures and heal your god for its health. Draw a card. This big increase in price right here by 25 cents. Nice. Obviously, you know, these are just cards that went over changes, but it's a good card. It's been splashed in Board Wipe Death a couple of times. It serves as a not only a way to like heal, but also trigger maybe an important afterlife effect such as Siren of the Grave, or maybe you want to trigger like a Neferu or a Fanatic of Khnum, that kind of stuff. And then you get to heal, which is nice. And then you draw a card, so it replaces itself really. Decent card, especially in Board Wipe Death. Cool. We're going to go ahead and move on to our deception cards. First up, we have Whisper Baron. So this card is a 3-mana 2/3 with hidden. When you summon a guild creature, the strength gains +1 strength. This card has a lot of potential, to be honest, because if you're running like a dedicated guild deck, and even if you're not, there are a couple cards that help enable this card to be splashable, like the Hollow, for example, that can get you like multiple guild cards that you don't have to include in your deck. But anyways, it also gets hidden, so you basically can keep it hidden until you're ready to attack, which is nice. But you see here, one copy was bought at a price point of $18.23 for US dollars, and yeah, it's probably going to go down, so just be patient if you're trying to pick up these cards. As more cards hit the market, we'll see, and more players get these cards, we'll see a decrease in price, but that's something to consider for sure. Good card, very good card. Next up, we have Ronalyn Sparrow. This is your 1-mana 2/2 with Ward, hidden for 1 turn. I like this card. 1-mana 2/2 hidden for 1 turn would already be worth the price point in my opinion, but because it has Ward, it's definitely worth your mana. Yeah, that's all I have to say. And it's a guild creature, so it has synergy with all the other guild cards. 3 copies were bought. 3 copies were bought at a price point of $5.35. Okay, that's not bad. And the cheapest you can find it right now is $5.39. Next up, we have Dahlia, Charite Temptress. Alright, so this is your 6-mana 2/2. Roar, gain control of an enemy creature with sleep. It's also a guild creature. We do see an increase in price right here. The cheapest you can find it at is $3.52 right now. Okay. 8 copies were bought at an average price of $4.31 today. Card is pretty good in my opinion. And the reason why I'm thinking it's good, at least with Sleep Deception, is because, well, it's a huge tempo swing, right? You can basically gain control of any creature that you feel would be a good target. And because that 0-mana spell that causes creatures to go to sleep is a part of the Deception class, you can basically play this card on curve and take whatever you want and have it be a enormous tempo swing. So yeah, expect this card to see play in Sleep Deception, at least for a little bit, until the meta solves itself. Okay, next up we have Phase Crawler. This is your 2-mana 3/2 Nether with hidden. I just want to take a quick minute to just say that this artwork scares the living crap out of me. It's just a giant spider, but it's a giant spider about to attack a giant person, so maybe just a regular person. But anyways, yeah, that's a... Yeah, I wouldn't want to wish that on anyone, to be honest. But yeah, anyways, so 2 copies were bought at an average price of 0.001212 ETH. That's about $3. The cheapest price you can find this card is $3.30 right now. I like it in general because it's 2-mana 3/2, which is kind of like average for its stat line, but it also has hidden, so it's immune from any targetable spells. You can use this to go face or trade, pick an opportune moment to trade. Yeah, I think this card has potential, and we could possibly see this in maybe Deception Rush. Next up, we have Dreamstalker. This is your 5-mana 2/3 Nether. Roar, destroy all sleeping creatures. Yeah, this card is pretty good. Especially if you can proc some mass sleep effects. I mean, the 0-mana spell that causes a minion to sleep turns into like a form of removal. So that could be pretty good. Right now, we do see its current price being at $2.28. Its cheapest you can find it at is $2.42 right now. Cool. Now onto the light cards. So with light, I feel like Zoo Light has definitely come into the spotlight for sure, but also Control Light is also becoming a thing. Um, Light has gotten some pretty good buffs during this time, during the core set refresh, so I'm excited to see which archetypes like come out on top. But it's looking like Zoo Light would be a strong contender. Anyways, moving on, Griffith the Chosen. This is your 7 mana 6/7 protected ward. Great combination of keywords. Roar, set the strength of all other creatures with strength 4 or more to 1. Yeah, this card is pretty good. You'd have to play it on turn 8 or turn 9, but so that's a lot of waiting. But I mean, if you're playing a control deck, you can definitely like fit this in. I think right now we're seeing it at a price point. Cheapest you can get it at is 160, and before that it was at 104. So it spiked quite a bit during the week. But yeah, I think this card is pretty decent in my opinion. It's protected ward, which is always a good combo, and then has great health, great stats, and then on top of that it neutralizes threats. So this can definitely see play in a control light deck. Next up, we have Vexing Viker. So this is your 0/1 frontline protected ward Mystic, for 1 mana. 3 copies were bought at an average price of, well, I switch my settings. Wow, yeah, 3 copies were bought at an average price of $27.64. The cheapest you can currently find it at is $18.21 though, so that's interesting. Do I like this card? I mean, it's a 1 mana Mystic. It has frontline protected and ward. I don't like how it doesn't have any strength, but maybe you can play this in a deck with like Frumentary Researcher that can totally see play in this type of deck. And Light is one of those decks where, at least Zoo Light, you can totally splash a Frumentary Researcher because of just the sheer amount of mystics the deck naturally runs, right? So it's an interesting card. Honestly though, like Protected Ward is a great keyword combination, so I wouldn't be surprised if this saw play. Next up we have Selfless Protector. This is your 1 mana 1/3 Olympian. After one of your creatures dies, pull it from your void onto the board and obliterate this creature. So there's a lot of potential with this card, especially when you have a minion that is probably going to die. Maybe you have a minion on board that already has like weakened health, and you're preparing to trade it with one of your opponent's minions. You can play this card before you trade, and then bring that minion back while obliterating this creature. So it has a lot of potential there. Like there's some times where this card would be very useful. In terms of price right now, 2 copies are bought at an average price of $10.34. Right now you can find this, the cheapest you can find this at is $5.50. So this card is already starting to see the decrease in price. Cool, next up we have Lysander's Mercy. This is going to be your 7 mana spell. Pull each creature on the board onto the bottom of their controller's deck. Yeah, so this card is a pretty good control like tool. It's a good board wipe for sure because it goes around with stuff like ward and protected. You're definitely, if you're playing this card, you're definitely banking on winning before you hit fatigue though, so just be aware of that. In terms of price, right now, oh wow, that's crazy. March 3rd it was at $4, and March 6th it peaked all the way to $9.33. It's currently at that $8.29 range, but that's a very interesting. It's probably a buyout for sure, but I mean, this card is very good in Control Light too, so I wouldn't be surprised at the increase in activity for this card. Next up, we have Call of the Light. This is your 2 mana and 3 acolytes to your hand. 1 copy was bought at an average price of $15.58. The cheapest you can currently find it at is $6.84. As far as the effect goes, add 3 2/2 acolytes to your hand. How much mana are the acolytes again? They're like 1 mana, right? So, mm, I mean, I guess that's fine. 2/2 is kind of average stat line for acolytes or for 1 mana cards. So, it's basically a Suedo draw 3 kind of. I mean, I like it, but I don't think I'd play this card, to be honest. Because then you're spending additional mana to play the acolytes, and maybe you can use it to like fill out your mana for your turn, but I don't know. It doesn't seem like too much of a powerful card unless I'm missing something here. But it is a good refill. Like, you get to play this for 2 mana, refill your hand with acolytes. Although those cards aren't like too useful, it's still like a sort of refill, so I can kind of see it. I just personally wouldn't play the card. Cool, moving on. Oh, you got it, buddy. I believe in you. Nice. Next up, we have Mace of Calling. This is your 2 mana 2/3 relic. Roar, add a 2/2 acolyte to your hand. Okay. So you're adding another acolyte to your hand. That's pretty interesting, to be honest. But right now, there are 2 copies that were sold today at an average price of $532. The cheapest you can find it now is $827. Definitely an interesting card. I'm interested to see if this will see play. I mean, there are already so many good relics in the light class, and honestly, adding a 2/2 acolyte to your hand, it's not really a special effect, right? So it doesn't really wow me, but 2/3 for a relic is pretty good. So this could possibly see play, but I don't know. I would personally just run Ritual Rod or Cudgel of Atonement. Okay, so next up we have Trial of the First Pillar. This is going to be your 6 mana spell. All creatures have their strength and health set to 2. Summon a 2/5 pillar with frontline and can attack. So this card reminds me of Sunkeeper Tarim from Hearthstone, sorry. Except maybe worse, right? Because you get to set everyone's health to 2, and then you get to summon a 2/5 pillar, which in theory should be able to block all of the minions that were like modified. But you do have to wait 7 turns to play this card, right? Because it's at 6 mana, so that's a pretty long time, and I don't think it's like as broken of an effect. Yeah, it can definitely be like a neutralizer, especially for Control Light, but there are just so many tools that Control Light can use, and this feels mediocre to me. But I mean, hey, I could be wrong, right? I'm just a guy, releasing market watches on YouTube and stuff. Anyways, jokes aside, yeah, I don't know if this would be strong or not, but definitely room for experimentation in this metagame. So anyways, for this card, you see a spike at 261. It's going back down to 218. The cheapest you can find it at is 235. I mean, yeah, this can be definitely splashed in Control Light, but it would be better if, all right, the pillar could attack. If the pillar could attack, I would be like, okay, this is fine. But because the pillar, the thing that summons the thing, can't even attack and trade favorably, then that's a problem, because now your opponent has an opportunity to kind of like work around the pillar, right? Gods Unchained is a game of attacker's advantage, meaning the attacker has complete control over where their attacks land. So if your opponent is good, or at least like has some sort of skill, they should be able to play around this, even with their strength and health reduced. Okay. Anyways, moving on to Anoint. Okay, I like this card. This is a 2 mana spell, double the health of a friendly creature. Yeah, double the health of a friendly creature. That's good. Pyramid Warden, here's 6 health. Be a 2 mana 2/2 now. Do what you need to do, man. I support you all the way. Polyhymnia, yeah. 9 health isn't enough. Just take 18. Why not? Yeah, be an 18 health minion with armor and ward and protected and all that stuff. Yeah, jokes aside though, this card has a lot of potential. Yeah, if your opponent doesn't run anything like a transform spell or ratify, you can play this card on like a large health minion, and basically that minion will survive for the rest of the game. So yeah, maybe use it on an Imperium Pacifist, right? That's already buffed. So when it gets to 110, you play the Anoint, and then you play it becomes a 120. That's pretty nutty in my opinion. I don't think it'll ever get to that point, but I mean, that's why this card has a lot of potential. Anyways, at the price point right now, we do see on the 7th, 56 copies were bought at an average price of $189. It's currently at $213 right now. The cheapest you can find it at is $228. So that's interesting stuff. Next up, we have Gentle Monk. This is your 4-mana 2/3, set an enemy creature's strength to 1. This is an underwhelming stat line for a 4-mana card. Setting an enemy's creature's strength to 1 is sort of okay because it combos with like things like Light's Levy, etc., etc. Anyways, we do see an increase in price here. It went from 122 all the way to 212. The cheapest you can find it at right now is 227. Next up, we have 40 Days. This is your 2-mana spell. Draw a card, give 2 friendly creatures afterlife, shuffle this creature into your deck. I mean, honestly, you'd probably just use this on... Maybe you use this on... Dang, I don't even know. What would you use this on? You'd use this on the 3-mana 3/4 that recycles itself. It's the Anuvian with the Death Rattle that when it dies, it keeps all its stats and then it shuffles back into your deck or something like that. That could definitely work with this card. I don't know. I mean, you get to draw a card and you get to recycle your creatures and stuff like that, but it's definitely something that you kind of have to get creative with because it doesn't provide an immediate impact on board, right? It's just, it doesn't do anything on board. It just basically gives you a card. So that's why I'm always like cautious about these types of spells. But we do see a buyout here. It spiked all the way from, wow, what's the spike? Oh, yeah, it spiked from 50 cents to 117. The cheapest you can find it at right now is 79 cents. Cool. While we wait for this screen to load, take a sip of water. Next up, we have Zealous March. So this is a 7-mana spell now. Fill your board with 2/2 Acolytes. Each of your creatures gain protected. Yeah, I like this card now that it's 7 mana. For sure, it serves as kind of like a finisher / refill, which is kind of nice. You get to give all your creatures protected, not just the Acolytes. Definitely saw an increase in volume here. Went from 30 cents all the way to 51. And currently, yeah, the cheapest price you can find it at is 51 cents. So, yeah, I like the card. I think the buff will definitely help it see play, at least in like lower level metas, but for the most part, it's still pretty decent if you don't have a better option at the 7-mana slot for light decks. Ooh, this one's spicy. Serene Blade. So it's a 3-mana 0/3 weapon. Whenever you summon a creature, give it 1/1 and ward. Then remove 1 durability from this relic. So I really like this relic now because not only does it buff your minions, but it gives them ward, which makes it super hard for your opponent to deal with removal, right? Like if I was a magic deck and I played against a light deck that ran Serene Blade, I would be very concerned because ward pretty much deals with all of my removal options, right? And if I want to pop the ward, I have to use my God Power for 2 mana, so that's just even more of a mana penalty. Yeah, this card, it can be very good. It has a lot of potential. I'm thinking about experimenting with this card too. But yeah, oh yeah, price. So price jumped from 30 cents all the way to 61 cents. The cheapest you can find it now is 46 cents. Cool, now we're on to our magic cards. So Clone jumped up by a lot. Holy bejeebus. It went from, let's see, 112 all the way to 192, and the cheapest you can find it at right now is $221.12. So yeah, Do I think this deck is because clone is what? It's mainly for Portal Wrangler, but I mean there are OTK implications, right? There for a couple of other cards. So, I have to think. Do I like this card? I mean, yeah, it's there are cards like this that exist in other TCGs that enable OTK strategies, of course. If you're not running an OTK deck, then I don't know if you'd run this card, to be honest. Like unless you need to copy a minion and you only run that one minion in your deck, right? Like if you ran like one Merlin or one Polyhymnia, you just basically draw the Polyhymnia, play clone, and then all right, I have two Polyhymnias, right? But yeah, it's interesting to see 212, man. That's very high, or 221 is very high. But maybe we'll see this price point stick. Ooh, next up we have Helpful Aether Fox. Okay, so 3 mana, 2/3 roar, reduce the cost of a spell in your hand that costs 3 or less to 0. It's also an Aether. Yeah, I really, 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 really like this card. One copy was already sold for $90, which is kind of crazy because this is a rare from a core set. But the cheapest you can find it at right now is $19.19. So, okay, that's decent. To the person who bought this for $90, I hope it was worth it. Cool. Next up, we have Unacceptable Monstrosity. This is your 9 mana 12/12 Mystic Frontline Protected Ward. One copy was sold, or 5 copies are sold at an average price of $31.08. And the cheapest you can find it at is $19.52. So this card is pretty interesting because I always talk about how good of a combination Frontline Protected and Ward are. 9 mana is pretty expensive. You're basically waiting like 13 turns to play. The stat line is good for a 9 mana card. It better be because I'm waiting the whole game to play this thing. So, yeah, it's definitely a card that can see play for sure. I just don't know how I feel about running multiple 9 mana cards in a deck. Just because it's just asking for like dead cards most of the time. Anyways, I digress. This is a card. It's actually pretty good. I'm excited to see what people do with it if they choose to play with this. Cool. Next up we have Flame of the Second Shattering. This is your 4 mana spell. Deal 4 damage. If you have 9 mana unlocked, deal 8 damage. Okay. So I like this card in particular. It's a 4 mana deal 4, which is kind of underwhelming for its stat line, but it turns into a 4 mana deal 8 after you unlock 9 mana. So this is definitely for control oriented decks. So if you're running like honestly like a control magic with a ton of burn cards, so like the new 2 mana 3 deal 3, or, I mean, Worm Breath is a contender. You have Epiphany, you have Astric Explosion, you have Flame of the Second Shattering, and then you just run a ton of control cards, stall cards, so that you burn your opponent down via face spells. So that could be an interesting thing to see. It is pretty spicy, the effect, not going to lie, and I like the design. Like, if you have 9 mana unlocked, you get to deal 8, so yeah, that's interesting. I don't know in this meta how often you're going to achieve that though, because most games end before 9 mana. But I mean, if you're running a deck that forces your opponent to go into 9 mana, this is definitely something to consider. Cool. Next up we have Librarian's Prayer. This is 4C6, draw a card for 3 mana. One card was bought at an average price of $20.86. The cheapest you could find this card right now is $22.04. Overall, I like the card. You get to 4C6, which is about 25% of your deck. If you play this on turn 3 right away, because by that time there'll only be 24 cards in your deck. I mean, it synergizes well with the Aether Fox. You get to draw a card. Not only that, you get to search and see what card you draw. So that's very interesting. I think this card has a lot of potential, and we'll definitely see it in decks that need to draw combos. Cool. Next up, we have Blizzard Bolt. This is your 2 mana deal 3 damage. Pretty straightforward right there. I like it. I like it. It reminds me of Frostbolt, right? But without the freezing effect. So 2 copies are bought at an average price of 23.06. The cheapest you can find this card right now is 16.61. Ooh, okay. Next up is Coralis Runemoth. This card is spicy because of the new buff. Instead of being a 1/1, it's now a 1/3 with backline, which is really nice. At the end of your turn, add a random rune to your hand and reduce its cost to 0. That's really good because it procs at the end of your turn, so you're automatically going to replace your card. And the runes are pretty decent, right? So like Runa Healing has its merits, Runa Strength definitely has its merits, Runa Power, and then so on and so forth. Like all the runes are pretty useful for their own way. And if you can get this card to like stay on the field for more than 2 turns, you should be good. Cool. Next up we have Metamorphosis. This is your 1 mana target a creature, delve a creature that costs 1 more mana, and transform the target into the creature. So this card has potential for sure. It's gone up in price. So it used to be at, what was it? It used to be at 73 cents. Now it's at 214, which is a pretty hefty double up. As far as this card goes, so I'm kind of bummed because it doesn't work on like big creatures that get discounts. I tried to use this on the Laylord Hatchling in hopes that I would summon like a Polyhymnia or something, and the Laylord Hatchling, because it was worth 0 mana when I played it, I could only like metamorph the Hatchling into something else that was like 1 mana, so it felt bad. But honestly, there's potential with this card for sure, but there needs to be I don't know, there's a potential with this card, but I think for the most part it might be a little too slow. The fact that you can delve actually makes it a lot easier though, because for some cards when you evolve or like transform a minion into a card that's worth more mana, sometimes it can be very hit or miss. Like you can, I don't know, you can get a creature that's like a 1/1, but it costs like 5 mana and it has a really busted roar. But I mean, obviously, because you summon it via Metamorphosis, you know, like it doesn't get the roar, so it's not really worth it. But because you can delve, at least you can hedge your risk for that. So that's very good. Cool. Speaking of Laylord Hatchling, this is your 8 mana. Each turn, set this creature's mana cost to 8 minus the number of cards in your hand. Roar, deal 4 damage. This card is pretty good. It's also a dragon, and it got a buff. It's now a 3/3 instead of a 2/1, which is nice. I like this card because you get to deal 4 damage, and it can be discounted depending on the deck you run. You'd probably run this in a slower deck, like a control deck, deck that doesn't want to spend all their resources early. So, yeah, it's a shame it doesn't synergize with Metamorphosis, because if you can get a discounted hatchling, play the Metamorphosis, and get like a Polyhymnia or something, man, that would have been busted. Sad truth is, that's not the reality of things. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's see the spike. So the spike happened here. It went from 20 cents over to 77 cents. So that's a nice 50-cent increase, you know? Not bad, not bad. Oh, yeah. Moving on, we have Crystal Rain. So this is your 4 mana, deal 2 damage to each enemy creature. I really like the change here. They took off the 4C effect, which is fine, but because it's now 4 mana, it's really easy for Magic to deal with hyper-aggressive aggro decks, right? You can just slap this down a turn earlier and wipe your opponent's board. So I like the card personally. It's being splashed in a lot of my decks for Magic because it's just so cheap, right? And it's a great tempo swing card. So yeah, currently you're seeing it at, what is it, 31? 18 copies were bought at an average price of 31 cents. The cheapest you can find it at is 23 cents. Cool. So while we wait for the nature cards, just want to take a quick sip Talking is hard. It takes a lot out of you. But anyways, so we went through the magic. Now we're on to nature. So first up, we have Canopy Sniper. This is your 2 mana 1/3 Amazon. After one of your Amazons attack, deal 1 damage to a random enemy creature. Yeah, this card is good. You play Nimble Pixie turn 1, and another Amazon turn 2, and play your Bag of Tricks and another Amazon, so you have 3 Amazons on board. Summon this Canopy Sniper and have your Amazons attack, whether that be face or trade. You make the call. You just did 3 damage to your opponent's board without much effort. And this can probably snowball games because you play this. If you play this on turn 2 and your opponent does not have an answer, this can go off. So, yeah. Anyways, I like the card. 1 copy was bought at a price of $20.83. The current card the current lowest price you can find this card for is $52.68. That's pretty expensive for a rare core card. But I digress. Okay, cool. Next up we have Murdo's Daughter. This is your 5 mana 2/2 Amazon with Blitz, Roar, pick 1. This creature gets 2/2 or another random friendly Amazon gets 4/3. So this card is pretty good because you're giving a random friendly Amazon 4/3, and that's 6/5 worth of stats for 5 mana. Yeah, that's pretty good. And the card has Blitz, so you can trade it off with a smaller minion. Yeah, you get a lot of value for this card, and this card will probably say play in Amazons. I'm not too sure because Amazon looks like a very low curve, and this is a more mid-range option for Amazons. Cool. Next up, we have Barksworn Trailmaker. This is your 1 mana 2/1 with Afterlife summon a 1/1 Amazon recruit. So it's technically a 1 mana 3/2, which is a decent stats for this mana price point. It only has 1 health though, so it's basically your opponent can sneeze on it and this card dies. But hey, at least you summon an Amazon recruit in the process, right? Anyways, 2 copies were bought at an average price of $15.85. The cheapest you could find this card at right now is $16.27. Cool. Next up we have Managarmer, Moonhound. Confuse after this creature attacks, refresh 3 mana. It's a 3 mana 3/4 now instead of a 3 mana 4/3. Hallelujah. I think 3/4 is a way better stat line. You are not out of the woods against like Starshard Bolt or Canopy Barrage, but if your opponent doesn't have those answers, this card can snowball games, which is nice, you know. The cheapest you can find this card at right now is $13.03, and last transactions, 35 copies were bought at an average price of $12.32. So yeah, very interesting stuff. Next up, we have Barksworn Protector. This is your 2 mana 2/3 with Ward. That's very good. Let's see. And 1 copy was bought at an average price of $11.71. The cheapest you could find this card at right now is $13.20. Let's talk about this card. It's an Amazon. 2 mana 2/3 is not bad of a stat line, but because it has Ward, it's pretty survivable. There's a lot of longevity with this card. Will it see play in Amazon decks? I'm not too sure because there are a lot of good options for Amazons at this point. Cool. Next up we have Gorilla Gardener. This is backline Blitz Overkill. After this creature destroys an enemy creature, summon a 1/1 Vibrant Fruit. Yeah, it saw an increase in price here at 15. What was that? 15.63. Now it's going downwards back to the $12 price point. Cool. As far as the card goes, I really like the card. Backline makes it harder to target. Blitz gives it an immediate way to make an impact on board. And because Overkill procs every time Gorilla Gardener kills a minion, they get to spawn more Vibrant Fruits and stuff like that. So very interesting card. I'm definitely it's definitely one of the cards to watch out for, especially if you're running against a control nature deck, you know. Dope. So next up we have Angry Hippo. This is your 5 mana confused frontline for 6. What with the wild tag? Let's see. One copy was bought at a price of 1806. Cheapest you can find this card now is 515. Why do I like this card? Well, it synergizes well with Ominous Burrow. Ominous Burrow could definitely be a tempo swing kind of thing. To play the Ominous Burrow, it should stay alive because it has decent stats and it also has backline. Once your turn starts, you get to kill the Ominous Burrow and summon an Angry Hippo, a Brazen Moose, or any other 5 mana wild minion, right? So yeah, I'm excited to see what this card can do. 4/6 is definitely not a stat line to look at or to scoff at. So I'm glad that it has decent stats. Cool. So moving on, we have General Orithia. This is your 7 mana 5/5 and frontline. Roar, summon 2 Amazon recruits, then give each of your other Amazons 2/2 and Twin Strike. Yeah, this card is good on by itself. Low-key reminds me of Doctor Doom because of the way it summons minions, but it doesn't have to remind you of Doctor Boom. Sorry, I said Doctor Doom. I'm thinking about the Fantastic Four. But yeah, anyways, Doctor Boom kind of reminds me of that. 7 mana. Lower stats though. Doctor Boom was a 7 mana 7/7, and then the Amazons do get buffs, which is nice. But I would love to see more stats on this card. Maybe it could be a 6/6 or something like that. Either way, this card is very good. It's a flagship staple for most Amazon decks. My gripe with the card though is that it's at 7 mana, and that's basically 8 and 9 turns to wait to play the card. So yeah, that's just an interesting tidbit. But anyways, so we're gonna go ahead and move on. The current price of this card is $8.97. It peaked at about $9.62. Only time will tell if this card will be run in Amazons. Definitely not financial advice for anyone watching for opinions on investments. Cool, awesome. Next up, we have Steadfast Scout. This is your 3 mana 1/3 Amazon. Roar, if you control at least 2 other creatures, give 2/2 to this creature. So it's a conditional 3/5, which is okay in my opinion, because if you're running this in an Amazon deck, you're going to be swarming the field for sure. So yeah, 3 mana 3/5, no taunt or no frontline or anything like that. It's just that's what it is. But it could definitely see play in Amazons for sure. Right now, you see 51 copies were bought out at an average price of $631. The most expensive card you can, or the cheapest you can find this card at, is going to be $783. Ooh, next up we have Jursemi, Freya's Spear. This is your 3 mana 3/3 now, not a 4/2. With Roar, Afterlife, give regen +1 to each other friendly creature. That's it's in regen nature. This card is definitely going to see play. In terms of, Amazon nature, this card can definitely see play in Amazon nature. In just big beast nature, I'm not too sure, but it's very splashable, so I wouldn't be surprised if there was someone out there that can make the list work with big beast nature and Jursemi. Anyways, we do see an increase in price right here. It bottomed out at $310 and now it's at $727. Wow. Cheapest price you could find it at is $709. Cool. Next up we have Enchanted Vine. This is your 6 mana, deal 4 damage to 4 random creatures. Add a random Talking's hard. Add a random nature card to your hand. Okay, so this card replaces itself. Has a lot of potential to deal a lot of damage. Especially if your opponent only has creatures on the board, because this card can also target your creatures, so you wouldn't want to play any creatures. You'd want to play this card first and then play a creature. But in terms of power level, I think this card is actually pretty strong. Yeah. It also replaces itself, which is nice. The only thing is, yeah, it's 6 mana. 6 mana for 16 damage. Yeah, that's pretty efficient for sure. I was going to say, The only thing is it's 6 mana, so you have to wait a really long time to play it. But I mean, 6 mana is kind of negligible. It's only like turn 6 or turn 7, depending on if you use a Bag of Tricks or if you run anything like your opponent's running anything like Fanatic of Kanoom or Sip of Elixir, that kind of stuff. Anyways, on to the next card. Next up, we have Veil Warden Minotaur. This is your 5 mana 5/5 Afterlife. Heal your god for 3. Add a random 7 mana cost wild creature to your hand. Wow, yeah. This card is a... I mean, 5 mana 5/5 is a decent stat line. It also heals, which is nice, especially in a class with nature. And then you get to add a random 7 mana cost creature to your hand. You don't get to delve, though, so you don't get to choose, or you don't have any agency involved, but for the most part, it seems pretty strong. Like, you can high roll a Demogorgon. You can high roll... what else can you high roll? Not Hellion Elite. The 6 mana 6 or the 7 mana 6/10 with Taunt. What else? You can high roll just so many things. Like any legendary creature that's 7 mana or less is also a viable option. But yeah, we do see a price spike here. It went from 184 all the way to 306, and the cheapest you can find it now is 324. Wow, good job, Veil Warden Minotaur. Great job. Cool, next up we have Mottled Ranger. This is your 3 mana 2/2, roar, delve a nature creature and put it into your hand. Good is that you get to delve a nature creature and put it into your hand. That's always nice to delve. The bad is, well, it's a 3 mana 2/2, so the stat lines are pretty underwhelming. And the cards that you get aren't from your deck, so that also plays a role into how much value this card actually produces. But yeah, I don't think I'd run this card, to be honest. I might run it if I didn't have any other better options, but there are better options in nature for sure. Ooh, next up we have Sudden Rally. This is your 3 mana spell. Summon 3 confused 1/1 Amazon recruits. So this is your 3 mana 3/3. You get to summon recruits. Well, I mean, to be honest, we do see the price spike from 46 cents all the way to 75. I don't think this is going to be worth your mana, though. If I'm not mistaken, unless you're trying to combo it with like Jersemi or Orithia or something like that. But anyways, yeah, it's a 3 mana 3/3. The minions are, well, one, the stats per mana is pretty average. But the other thing is the Amazons don't come out they come out confused, and that could be a problem sometimes. I can't tell you how many times I've lost a game because my confused creature can deal lethal. Has anyone ever experienced that? Because that's something I experience whenever I play Big Beast Nature. But yeah, I don't know. I don't like the confused. I think if they were just summon 3 Amazons, that could be okay. But because there's a confused there, I actually don't think this card is worth my mana. Cool. Next up we have Arrow of Rage. So this is your 1 mana random, and a random enemy creature takes your strongest creature's health, strength, and damage. This is very efficient removal for 1 mana, and I wouldn't be surprised if this got added to the staple section of like Big Beast Nature decks, along with Canopy Barrage, Lightning Strike, and the Hunt. I'm very excited to see where this card goes because I actually think it's a lot of good value. Not only that, you're not even destroying your creature. You're just, choosing your strongest creature and dealing their strength, worth, and damage. But anyways, currently you see it at 51 cents. The cheapest you can find it at right now is 59 cents. Cool. Moving on, we have Raging Giant. This is your 6 mana 7/7 confused twin strike roar. If you are frenzied, give 1 armor to this creature. So because it doesn't have so 6 mana 7/7 is actually a very good stat line for the 6 mana card. It's actually it should be on par technically. The confused hurts it a little bit. I wish it had blitz so that it can cause an immediate impact on board. It also has Twin Strike too, which is kind of nice. And hey, if you're running a Frenzied Nature deck and you can proc the Frenzy, this card gets armor. So yeah, it's a decent card for sure. It's also an Amazon, so it gets a lot of support from that stuff. But yeah, as you can see here, it peaked at 35 cents on March 6th, and now it's settling into that 25-cent price level. Let me try to pronounce this. Penthesilean Warrior is your 2-mana 2/3 Amazon. Roar, give 1/1 to the strongest other friendly Amazon. Okay, so it requires you to have another Amazon. However, that should be easy with the amount of 1-drop Amazons there are in the game. Anyways, so let's just assume that if you do hit the bonus, this is a 2-mana 3/4 with the Amazon tag. Yeah, that's pretty good. A 2-mana 3/4 is very, very solid. So yeah, nothing much to see here. We do see an increase in value. It's basically went from 96 cents to 160, and now it's currently at 202. Cool. Now we're going to move on to the war cards. So the war cards, it's mainly Viking support. So just be aware of that. But we're going to go ahead and start off with Respected Jarl. So Respected Jarl is your 2-mana 2/1 Viking with Blitz. Give a friendly damage creature with Twin Strike and 1 Strength. So Respected Jarl actually kind of synergizes with Out of Its Misery. Someone from my previous video posted that, and I just want to give that shout out to the person who said that in the comment. I'm sorry, I'm blanking out on names. I don't want to go back and look at the YouTube video because we're filming, but I just want to know whoever pointed that out. Thank y'all. Anyways, but yeah, this card has synergy with Out of Its Misery. Obviously, it has synergy with Vikings. It has to be damaged, though. So that's something to keep in mind. Maybe you play an Inflammable Imbecile turn 1, then you play this card to give that Imbecile Twin Strike and 1 Strength. Maybe that's a thing. I'm pretty sure there are other synergies out there that work. And hey, like if there isn't a way to reliably practice, at least you have battle, right? And that battle happens every game, barring any like OTK mirror matchups. Anyways, going ahead and moving on to the next card, we have Grendel Night Terror. So this is going to be your 6-mana 4/4 Blitz protected. After this creature attacks, it becomes protected again. So I liked how they dropped the mana cost down to 6 mana because that just makes it so much more playable. Playing a Grendel at 8 mana seemed very hard at times because the game wouldn't last long, and if you're holding a 8 mana card, you're pretty much waiting the entire game to play it, essentially, right? So yeah, I like the changes to Grendel. We do see a little bit of buyout here once the core set was announced, and currently you can buy it for $6.39 on the marketplace. Cool. So next up, I'm gonna talk about Sharpen. So Sharpen has been seeing not only an increase in price, like steady increase in price, but it's also been seeing a steady it's been seeing a good amount of activity, right? So what I like about the card, well, it's 6 damage for 2 mana, and that's very mana efficient. You do need a relic to get the full bonus and a creature, but it's so easy to have a relic in Roar, right? You already run Enduring Shield. You already run the 3/2 with God Blitz. If you run Leviathan Hunter or Valka's Captain, that's already more relics for you to take advantage of Sharpen. So, yeah, I'm not surprised at the increase in activity and price point because I also think Sharpen is a very good card, very efficient for its mana, if you can overlook some of the drawbacks. Cool. Next up, we have Deathsworn Raider. This is your 3-mana 3/2 Viking. Roar, give 2/1 to a friendly Viking. Okay, so assuming that your deck is all Vikings and every buff will work on this, or every buff that Deathsword Raider will give will work. But essentially, this is your 3 mana 5/3, and that's pretty decent in my opinion. 3 mana 5/3 is nothing to scoff at. You give it to another one of your Vikings, so they'll be able to take advantage of that bonus. I mean, it has some potential for sure, but there are a lot of better options here. Like, for example, any of the protected minions, right? When you think of Odie, you think of, what's the word? Shoot. It's the 3 mana 3/2 with protected. You think of Master Tactician. You also think of just like so many cards that you can run at the 3-drop. Sorry, Master Tactician isn't a 3-drop. It's a 2-drop. I don't know why I included I included it in that example. Wow, talking's very hard today. Anyways, we do see it jump 165 all the way to 294. It's currently at 327. Wow. Next up, we have Commander's Gladius. This is your 2 mana 1/2 God Blitz. Roar, give 1/1 to a random creature in your hand. It gets to buff some creatures. It has God Blitz. It's a relic. There's a lot of good things going for it. I love the God Blitz part of it. Any relic that has Blitz or God Blitz and a whenever effect, or not even a whenever effect, just Blitz or God Blitz, should be very good, or they're worth considering because it has God Blitz or Blitz. Like, you're able to play the weapon right away and then just attack with it, which is nice. That it can provide some good value there. Anyways, you see the dip happen at 25 cents. It's now at 45 cents. The cheapest price you can find it at is 49 cents right now. Cool. Next up, we have Battle Bard. This is your 1 mana 2/2 Roar. Give a friendly Viking 2 strength. It's also a Viking. Wow, this card is actually kind of good. It's a 1 mana 2/2, so that's a very standard stat line for 1 mana cards. But then it gives 2 strength, so it's technically a 1 mana 4/2. To a friendly Viking, of course, you need to have a Viking on board, so make sure you do that before you play this card. But yeah, it's a decent stat line. It deserves to have a closer look. Maybe it belongs somewhere in Frenzied Aggro War. We'll see. But yeah, it spiked all the way from 90 to 188, so that's almost a double in price. Current price right now is 205. Cool, and we did Respected Jarl already. Oh, we did Grendel. Nice. We did Sharpen. Nice. Okay, we did all of these. Beautiful. Let's see it. Okay, nice. So now we're going over to our neutral cards. And yeah, these are just a couple ones that I wanted to highlight. Just because, yeah, the activity has gone up since the last time we've seen some of these cards. So Desert Mercenary, 3 mana 3/3 guild, Roar, reduce to 1. The cost of each guild creature in your hand with the cost of 2 or 3. So it's not reduced by 1, it's reduced to 1, and that has some pretty nutty implications. Yeah, some pretty nutty implications. You can play this card and then discount a hollow. You can discount another Desert Mercenary. I'm running out of examples for guild creatures, but you get the point, right? Any card in Gods Unchained that allows you to cheat mana should be given a closer look, because mana cheating cards can provide so much tempo, and they can possibly win you the game, right? Every good deck in a TCG that has a mana system, any card that cheats mana is kind of good, you know. Anyways, I digress. We do see an increase in price in ETH. You don't really see it as prominent in the US dollars section, but yeah, it went from, let's see where it went from. It went from like $6 all the way to $8.49, and the cheapest you can find this card right now is $9.39. Oh, right. Sorry, I forgot to mention the freaking new Deception cards. Hello, the new Deception cards combo so well with this card. Yeah, and they're good. So this card will definitely see an increase in price. if Deception does very well, which I'm thinking it will, but I don't know. I digress. But this card is something to keep an eye out for. Cool. Taking another sip of water. Cool. So next up we have Porphyrion, Dread Cyclops. This is your 5 mana 5/5 ward. At the end of your turn, increase the mana cost of your opponent's god power by 2 until your next turn. So this card is... I like the buff, right? Because they reduce the cost and they reduce the stats, but I actually like the stat line. 5 mana 5/5 is very decent. Has ward, meaning your opponent will have to burn resources to remove this creature unless they have something that they can trade it in or trade with into it. But yeah, I like the effect at the end of your turn, so it triggers very easily. You just have to play the card and pretty much press the end turn button. But you increase the mana cost of your opponent's god power by 2 until your next turn. That can have some implications maybe for... I don't know, especially in the later turns, you'll be using your god power a lot. So if your opponent doesn't... If you can take that away from them, that's a very valuable skill. It can also be pretty annoying to deal with if you're playing against this card. But yeah, anyways, we do see an increase in price and volume. So before, on March 6th, it was 307. And it peaked all the way to 513. The cheapest you can find this card right now is 512. And loading one more time. Come on, you got it. Oh, Frumentari Researcher. Yeah, baby. This is your 3 mana 2/4 Mystic. After you summon a Mystic, deal 2 damage to a random enemy character. Well, yeah, this card is pretty good. It reminds me of Flamewaker from Hearthstone. And there are a lot of cards that synergize really well with this card. So we mentioned Zoo Light. Zoo Light runs a lot of Mystics in their deck, so you can definitely splash this card in hopes of proccing its effect. Another class that has a lot of good Mystics are the Magic class, right? Because Demetros is a Mystic. Who else is a Mystic? The 1 mana 1/1 with the Ward and Protected is a Mystic. The Assistant Alchemist is a Mystic. The Street Conjurer is a Mystic. What else? The Flying Carpet. It's the 1 mana 3/1 with Ward or for C. Yeah, that's also a Mystic. So there are a lot of different ways, or this card can definitely be splashed in a lot of decks. Zoo Light and Magic being the main ones, but I mean, every class has some sort of Mystics. They're not going to be all good, but that's something to consider. Anyways, we do see an increase in price right here. It went from $292 all the way to $459. The cheapest you can find this card is $481 right now. Cool. Next up, we have Nimble Pixie. Okay, so this card is seeing an increase in ETH right here. It's also kind of reflected in the dollar, but it's currently approaching its previous resistance. Anyways, it's Nimble Pixie, 1 mana 1/1 with Flank, Roar, summon a Nimble Pixie. This card is pretty decent card in an Amazon deck, right? Because using our previous example with Canopy Sniper, you summon a Nimble Pixie. Whoa, what if you summon 2 Nimble Pixies? Turn 1, summon 2 Nimble Pixies, bag of tricks. If you're going first, you don't have to worry about your opponent dealing with it unless like they run, I don't know, archers. Maybe they run like the 2 mana spell that deals 1 to everything. Anyways, I digress. But imagine that scenario, right? You play 2 pixies, your opponent summons a creature, doesn't have an answer for the pixies yet because he's waiting for his more expensive spells or his god power or whatever. But you end up with 4 pixies on the field, which are Amazons. Play the Canopy Sniper. Basically, you can just have all your pixies go to face, and the Canopy Sniper will deal with the minion that your opponent summoned. So, yeah, there's lots of potential with this card. Amazons are definitely going to be a thing this meta, so I wouldn't be surprised if we saw this card go up even higher. Cool. And last but not least, we have City Planner. This card has been on the rise for a little bit. It's currently like what? We covered this in our last Market Watch or the Market Watch before that, but it's been steadily increasing. With the new Rampart buff, I don't even know if it's a buff. I mean, it could be a buff, but it's a 7 mana 7/7 summon a 2/1 Ramparts, which means for 7 mana you get 915 worth of stats. Yeah, 915 worth of stats. And the Ramparts have frontline. So your opponent will have to, if they're planning on trading to deal with the City Planner, they have to deal with the Ramparts first and then the City Planner, which can be a little annoying because the Ramparts have a lot of health still. Four health is still a lot for creatures to deal with. So yeah, that's a super interesting card. It definitely has a lot of potential, but I haven't seen any meta deck utilize it very well yet. So we'll see. Maybe we'll see something with structures. If not, then I don't know. It's still a good card. You get a lot of card for its stats. So yeah. And that's pretty much it for today. Wow, that was a doozy. We went through a lot of cards. What time are we at? It's an hour. We went through it. We went through the whole thing for an hour, huh? Cool. Final thoughts, just to close everything out. Amazons are definitely going to be a thing this meta, so try to get the Amazon cards while you can. Not financial advice, of course. Mystics are also going to be a thing this meta. I'm expecting Frumentary Researcher to kind of exist in either Zoo Light or maybe a Tempo Magic, some variation of that. That can definitely be a thing. Also, Guild Deception is something that to watch out for, because some of those cards look really good. Overall, though, I'm excited for the new meta. I think we've been overdue for a shakeup. I think the last shakeup was Divine Order, really. So having these core set refreshes is going to do wonders to keep the game fresh. Also, there are a bunch of new core cards for us to farm and put on the marketplace. So it's a good time to be a play-to-earn player for Gods Unchained, that's for sure. Anyways, y'all, thanks for tuning in. Hope you guys have a great night, and we'll see you next time. Take care, tell your loved ones you love them, and peace.